Hi, I'm John Stevenson, and we're going to be looking at the legacy of the law, Deuteronomy chapter 7, in our continuing study through the book of Deuteronomy. Deuteronomy chapter 5, if you remember, looked at the past giving of the law back on Mount Sinai, and Moses takes his listeners, we could say his readers because we're reading it, but he takes his listeners back 40 years to the time when God had given the law, and then we moved to chapter 6 where we have the so what of that. Here's the present application as they're getting ready to go into the land. And then chapter 7 of Deuteronomy is going to look at the future once they get into the land. What then? So here it is, chapter 7, verse 1. When the Lord your God brings you into the land where you are entering to possess it, and clears away many nations before you, the Hittites, the Girgashites, the Amorites, the Canaanites, the Perizzites, and the Hivites, and the Jebusites, 7 nations greater and stronger than you. I think it's significant that 7 nations are mentioned. Remember how Jesus does this miracle. He feeds the 5,000 with 5 loaves and 2 fish. But at another time, he feeds a multitude of 4,000 with 7 loaves. And here there's 7 nations. And remember, after he had fed the multitude, the 4,000 with 7 loaves, there had been 7 baskets that had been filled. And maybe that's a hint that at that time there had been a miracle directed toward the Gentiles. Well, in any case, here there's 7 nations that were greater and stronger than you that are going to be moved out and that are going to be conquered. Verse 2, and when the Lord your God delivers them before you, and you defeat them, then you shall utterly destroy them. Whereas Jesus had reached out with life and hope, here at the time when Israel is going to be planted in the land, those other nations are met with the command for destruction. You shall defeat them, you shall utterly destroy them, you shall make no covenant with them, and show no favor to them. That phrase, utterly destroy, the Hebrew term there is ha-karam te-karim. It's from the root word haram. You have to get that little guttural. It means to be devoted. And so the two words there together, we could say, devoted. But when you want to say something's really strong, and that's why our translators have translated utterly destroyed them, completely destroyed them with a destruction. When you're intensifying it in Hebrew, you say it twice, and that's what's taking place here. So you shall defeat them, you shall completely destroy them, you shall make no covenant with them, and show no favor to them. Furthermore, verse 3, furthermore, you shall not intermarry with them, you shall not give your daughters to their sons, nor shall you take their daughters for your sons, for they will turn your sons away from following me to serve other gods. And that's the history of what eventually took place. You see, the Israelites are told, go in and destroy the inhabitants of the land. And they don't entirely do that. And because they don't do that, the very thing against which they're warned is going to take place. The books of Ezra and Nehemiah talk about how Israelites, even after the captivity, had again taken their daughters for their sons. And verse 4, we see the result of that, for they will turn your sons away from following me to serve other gods. And then the anger of the Lord will be kindled against you, and he will quickly destroy you. So either they are going to be destroyed, or Israel, you are going to be destroyed. A destruction is going to take place. But thus you shall do to them, verse 5, you shall tear down their altars, and smash their sacred pillars, and hew down their asherim, and burn their graven images with fire. You see, there's a problem in the land. It's a land full of idolatry, of worshiping false gods. And if you go into the land and just try to coexist, then it won't be long before you're also worshiping those false gods. And you don't want to go there, because that will bring destruction. Verse 6, for you are a holy people to the Lord your God. The Lord your God has chosen you to be a people of his own possession. Notice, you're a set-apart people. They are dedicated, they are set apart to destruction. You're set apart to life as long as you follow the Lord. For you're a holy people to the Lord your God. The Lord your God has chosen you to be a people for his own possession out of all the peoples on the face of the earth. The whole world belongs to God, but he's chosen out of the whole world a special people. They are called, and this is why they're called the chosen people. Some people sometimes have a problem with that idea that God chooses some, that he predestines some. The Israelites don't have that kind of problem because they know themselves as the chosen people. They're the people that God has chosen out of all the peoples of the earth. Verse 7, the Lord did not set his love on you or choose you because you were more in number than any of the peoples. Actually, just the opposite. You were the fewest of all peoples. But because the Lord loved you and kept the oath which he swore to your forefathers, the Lord brought you out by a mighty hand and redeemed you from the house of slavery, from the hand of Pharaoh, king of Egypt. It wasn't because Israel was so great. It wasn't because Israel was so godly. It was because of God's love that he chose these people and set them apart to be his special people. Verse 9, know therefore that the Lord your God, he is God, the faithful God who keeps his covenant and his loving kindness to 1,000th generation with those who love him and keep his commandments, but repays those who hate him. And as we mentioned earlier, either you love him or you hate him. And toward those who love him, notice it goes to 1,000 generations of blessings. But to those who hate him, there's also a continuing refrain. It's not 1,000 generations, that's the good news. But repays those who hate him to their faces to destroy them. He will not delay with him who hates him. He will repay him to his face. There's coming a day of accountability. And so, God says, God speaking through Moses, therefore you shall keep the commandment and the statutes and the judgments which I am commanding you today to do them. And the sad truth we've mentioned before is that we have not kept the commandment. We have not kept the statutes and the judgments. And therefore, God sent one to be judged in our place. God sent his Son, Jesus Christ, to suffer the penalty of judgment that we deserve, that we, through faith in him, might have eternal life.